The short-handed Cleveland Cavaliers got a very impressive win against the East-leading Detroit Pistons. Do we have a paper, rock, scissors situation going on in the Eastern Conference? I think so. We'll find out what Legs thinks. And then the Raptors, just how good are they after they drop a game to another one of the East top teams? We'll talk about both of that. It's an Eastern Conference heavy edition of the All-NBA Show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, who joins us from an undisclosed location somewhere on the road. Legs, how you doing?
Good. I'll disclose it. I'm in New York City, baby, and the Big Apple, and I am looking forward to the night. OKC and the Knicks in the Garden, man. I cannot wait for this game. But we had some really good games last night, and we had like the upper echelon in the East getting after it a little bit last night, with the exception of Boston.
The East is becoming very interesting. Just the teams at the top are starting to come together in a way that, I don't know if we saw a month ago, 2 months ago, but the East has something interesting. So that's a big part of today's show. We're going to break both of those games down. And that'll be the entire show, breaking both of those games down, because we saw a bunch of the top teams in the East, so it was a good day to do that. But I want to start, first of all, did you see this last night? NBC did the throwback broadcast, an homage to my childhood with the old school NBA logos and everything, intros for the Spurs and the Sixers. Did you catch this last night?
Yeah, I did. Last night was one of those nights. It's funny. I was actually, so I got to New York and I went across the street to get some dinner, and I took my phone, my laptop, and my iPad to dinner. And I'm sitting at a table by myself with all three games that I needed to see on at the same time. I had the sound on most of the time on the NBC broadcast, the throwback, because I could watch the other two and kind of take it all in, because we knew we were talking about those games. You want to hear something funny? The next table over from me, there was like a couple on a date, it looked like to me, and the guy was just doing nothing but sneaking peeks at my games. And I'm like, because I did have this ridiculous setup. I basically created a sports bar at my table, and it was kind of funny, man, that I'm sitting there and I know people are thinking like, either if they recognize me, they knew what I'm doing. If they didn't recognize me, they're thinking like, man, this guy really loves the NBA.
That's incredible, man. I love the idea of being on a date, but now all of a sudden you're tempted. Somebody else brought a battle station, so you have to peek over. Sure. It's cool to see, man. I like those old logos. I like all that stuff. The NBC, when I think about it, obviously they were very popular in the 90s. My entry point to the NBA, and I think for a lot of people my age, was Ahmad Rashad and NBA Inside Stuff. That's what I always think of when I think back to, you see those old logos and old graphics and stuff. What about you? You were a player in this era. You got to experience firsthand.
I did, man. It's really, really cool. And it brings me back to those big games that you would play in the NBC broadcast. And then so I'm thinking obviously when you're playing in the game, you're not listening to the broadcast, but I watched pretty much every single game I played. I watched back one way or another. And so then that's when you'd watch it with the sound up. Yeah. And so all this stuff, man, it just takes me right back to that time in the 90s. And it's funny because you brought up Inside Stuff. Hannah Storm, very good friend of mine, colleague for a really long time at ESPN. She was a big part of that. That's when I first got to know her, and I remember being in San Antonio for All-Star Weekend when I was performing in the three-point shootout. And I remember the night before there was some event I was at, and there was like an elevator. And I remember the elevator opened up, and it was like all of the people were talking about, like the Inside Stuff. Basically, their entire cast was walking off the elevator, and I got a chance to talk to them. I had never met Hannah Storm till that point. Of course, we've been working together now for a really long time. She loves the NBA. She's been so good on the NBA. And of course, the other voices, Bob Costas there, Doug Collins, who for me probably was my favorite in-game analyst, of that time. And a guy that I think in a lot of ways, I kind of patterned some of the stuff that I do. I think after Doug Collins, like what I thought was a good listen and what people wanted to hear, what I wanted to hear, he provided. And so that's kind of influenced my trajectory as a broadcaster. I think Mike Fratello I competed against, and also he was a broadcaster in some of my games. So, and of course Bob Costa is legendary. So yeah, PJ Carlissimo also involved in the broadcast. It was awesome, man. It was really an awesome thing and Doug Collins and I actually text each other, periodically, and he's always watching, man. That guy is watching every game at home.
Purist.
Still. He's such a diehard hoops fanatic. He loves the NBA so much. So it was a cool idea, executed really well. And I think for a lot of people, man, it was a nice trip down memory lane.
Somebody's got to bring back something like a revamped version of NBA Inside Stuff. I don't think there's anything like that out there. And I loved it because it was such good storytelling. Like, you got to meet these players in a way you didn't ever before. So somebody's got to bring that back. You got to talk to ESPN. I'm ready to bring back.
We do have NBA Today. I mean, NBA Today is kind of a similar format, right? For the most part, half-hour studio show that they do a really, really good job. And they're not doing all game breakdown. They're getting into features and other stories like that too. Yeah. Inside Stuff, if I remember it, like the way I think I do, very like story driven around the players and things like that. NBA Today is still kind of covering like the day-to-day operations of the league, like what happened last night, what's going to happen tonight. And then they also mix in those stories. So I think the NBA Today crew does an incredible job. It's a really good show. And I think if you're a diehard NBA person, it's a show you got to be watching.
Well, let's dive into last night because there is a lot to talk about between the two games we're going to go over. And the first one is going to be the Cavs getting a win over the Pistons, 113-109. It's a very close game, back and forth. But without Donovan Mitchell, the Cleveland Cavaliers still managed to outscore the Detroit Pistons. And really, this was a defensive battle where I thought both teams did some impressive stuff. But in my opinion, where I'll start, my first thing I'll throw at you is, I don't know if anybody had a better game than your guy, Jaylon Tyson. He might be the single best defensive player in the league, or at least has put on the single best defensive performance against Cade Cunningham. What he did last night, he was unbelievable. I have this note from All NBA Stats and Research. Cade has 33 games this season where he's matched up with a defender one-on-one with at least 25 half-court possessions. Last night was the fewest points he has scored. Just 2 points against Jaylon Tyson in the half-court. That is crazy. And when you watch the game, it was blocked shots, it was physical defense, it was contested shots, it was forced turnovers. I thought that was a big storyline because I watched that and I go, he's kind of a good matchup. He seems to really understand what he needs to do against Cade.
One of the things you have to have against Cade Cunningham, you better have some size and strength, but you also have to have some lateral quickness. And maybe most importantly, you have to have that sort of wild look in your eye for competition.
Yeah, he was ready for it.
Jaylon Tyson has that look. I don't know how many games, the Cavs games I've done this year. It's probably, I've definitely called the Cavs more than any other team in the NBA.
Really?
I don't know. It's probably 6 times I've seen them. And of course, I was calling the game when he had the 39-point game against Philly and made the great pass at the end of the game to win the game. That was almost like, hey, Jaylon Tyson's arrived. Meanwhile, we already knew he was playing well going into that moment. But from a national perspective, like, who is this guy? Just dropped 39 on Philly and makes this great pass at the end of the game. What I didn't realize maybe at the time, and the more I've gotten to see him, and that was early on, I've gotten to see him 2 or 3 times since, is his defense, his strength, his want to, man, how serious he takes that responsibility of wanting to guard these top guys. You can't just throw any defender at Cade, even if you think is an elite defender, if it doesn't fit the physical profile that you need. You have to be a guy that understands you're not going to be bullied by Cade because he's so big, he's so strong, but he's also got the ability to face you up and go by you, so you have to slide your feet too. Very few guys in this league possess all of that. Jaylon Tyson does, and most importantly, he is up for it. He's got to look, man. He's going to talk to you. He's going to be chest to chest with you, like when the ball's being taken out of bounds and Cade's sort of walking to his spot. Jaylon Tyson's there, leaning on him, looking at him, talking to him. Like he relishes the role, man. He relishes the challenge of doing this, and he has played him as well as anybody in the league. Look, Cade still had 14 assists. He had an impact. You didn't notice Cade Cunningham as much last night as you typically do.
And in the clutch, there were just a lot of mistakes, and a lot of forced errors where the pressure was getting into him. And Jaylon Tyson, I mean, I think obviously his individual defense is incredible, but I do think that it helps, at least for a half in this game, but typically you will have multiple rim protectors. You can play 48 minutes of rim protection. Now, I know Jared Allen wasn't able to give them to that fully yesterday, but only gets 21 minutes in this game. But That's part of it, is you have the ability to press into the ball no matter where it is, because if you get beat, there's still a second challenger, so you can catch up and you're funneling them towards your rim protection. And it stood out because so much of what makes the Pistons good is their ability for Cade to get by a line of defense and then create something there. But I think the Cavs have the combination of perimeter pests and interior presence that when I watch this, I go, you know what? I'm not sure that's wholly solvable. No matter what, Cade would have a difficult time matching up with Cleveland every single time they play.
Yeah, and not just Cade, like everybody. If you think about what we're talking about here, they've got a number of guys. Like they've got some guys on the perimeter that can get it done. Then they've got all that length and versatility, mobility on the back end with Jared Allen and Mobley. And Allen wasn't a big factor last night, but Mobley certainly was. Listen, man, the Cavs are a team now you've got to look at differently than you did even probably last year when they were on their way to 64 wins. There was a lot of skepticism. Turns out we were right. Now, look, they were banged up, and that's the real thing. That's not an excuse. That's a partial reason. They did not have the guys healthy they needed at the right time, and they got sent home. I think, and even now, of course, they didn't get off to a great start this year at the beginning of the year, and they were dealing with injuries, and Garland was out for a while. You're kind of waiting to see. They haven't had Strus all year, but I tell you what they did to transform their team at the trading deadline and what they acquired with the depth in their backcourt and with a guy like Harden, who's probably in one of the best spots I've seen him in his entire career.
Agreed.
It's a shame for him that he's in his late 30s when he's in this spot. But when you talk about the support offensively that a Mitchell's going to provide him, that he has to have, so he's not the guy that has to go get 35 in a big spot in a playoff game. When you have that guy next to you and you have this sort of defensive infrastructure with this kind of shooting around him, Harden is going to be a massive impact player. And I look at the Cavs a lot differently right now than I did at any time over the previous 2.5 years.
Our other host, Jason Tim, when that trade happened, he was immediately started picking them to come out the East, and it's looking pretty good right now just because, to your point, this team does seem to make sense, and it really makes sense for Harden. You mentioned the shooting around him. What's actually as impressive to me, and Cleveland had this last year, their ability to make plays off of the initial action. So James Harden's great at breaking you down, create his own shot, or get into the paint and kick it out. If an immediate shot's not open, the Cavs last night, and it's really been consistent for them, they're so good at swinging the ball, secondary drives, catch, attack, close out again, swing the ball. The ball pops off of whatever it is that Harden creates, and obviously when Mitchell is there, what Mitchell creates. And that's what's different. It's not just I have to create something so open that I kick out to a wide open guy, but I can create a little opening and trust that the ball's going to pop behind it and they're going to find an even better one. And that's what I saw last night. I mean, Harden struggled, but the plays off of his creation were just, they compounded. I think it's really the strength of this Cavs team.
Can I talk about a couple of those plays specifically? Please. So people can go back and take a look at this? So you're talking about a 2-point game. Detroit makes a run. It's a 2-point game, 5.5 minutes to go. Some of the possessions late, to your point. First one, it's 104-103 after Duren gets a dunk. It's a 1-point game. They run action. Harden penetrates from the left wing into the middle of the floor toward his right hand. Cade Cunningham is guarding Sam Merrill on the weak side of the floor. And to talk about the gravity that James Harden possesses and then his ability to pass and beat you out of that, it happened on that play. Cade Cunningham turned, his shoulders ended up facing Merrill, so he didn't know where he was. He was going to give some help, stunt back. At exactly the time he turned his head, Sam Merrill drifted from an area that was more toward like the closer to the top of the key over to the dead wing. By the time Cunningham turned around, Merrill had relocated 15 feet. So he forced Harden to pick it up, which was his job. And then on the kick out, he thought he knew where Merrill was. He didn't. Yeah. Harden delivered the ball perfectly. Merrill bangs a three. So that was one big possession, again, created by Harden's passing and just gravity of drawing multiple defenders. But the one you're talking about, a play similar to that, it was 107-105. So we're still in a 2-point game. James Harden went to run ball screen with Mobley. High, like 35 to 40 feet out toward the right sideline. They trap him. Mobley set the screen and then immediately dove to the middle of the floor. Now, For Harden to get it from where he was with two defenders directly to Mobley would have been tough. So you know what he did? He swung the ball cross court to Merrill, who immediately hit Mobley on that dive. Like perfect timing. And now Mobley gets it going downhill to the rim, attacks somebody, gets fouled. He only makes 1 out of 2. So it's still a 3-point game after that. But it was such a big possession, and Harden trusting and making the right read. And the like sort of like the dynamic of the Cavs offense, that the ball gets swung and then the next right decision gets made. Typically, to your point, whether that was going to be a attack by Merrill off the closeout or maybe one more swing to the corner. But in this case, because Harden had dragged those two guys, defenders, all the way to the right sideline, that middle was wide open. So on the swing, Mobley took a beeline. He ends up catching the ball in the foul line area with nobody around him from Merrill, drives straight at the rim and gets fouled, makes the free throw. So again, I'm impressed with their action too. They're a smart team. They move it well. They're even smarter when Mitchell plays, and it's a whole nother level of threat. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Hey, let's get the parade route planned," because they've struggled in the postseason. Harden has struggled in the postseason. So a lot's got to come together. But it's not just Harden, man. They added Schroeder. They added Keon Ellis. They've got so much depth now with their defense on the perimeter. Schroeder's a guy that can go get you 30 in like a game if somebody sits. I just love what they did to their team, and you could see the belief amongst the group is different than it was at the beginning of the year. I can tell you that for a fact.
Well, they didn't even play well last night. I didn't think. This is what's impressive about it. You don't have Donovan Mitchell, which obviously is going to open up a lot for you. James Harden's dealing with this thumb injury, and I didn't think he played particularly well. Well, I should say I didn't think he shot the ball particularly well, and he had good looks. You know, it wasn't one of these things where everything was hyper contested. He missed some shots, 2 of 9 from 3, that I think he'll actually hit more frequently, and yet you still get the win, and it's because of the things you said. They just executed their identity, and a Pistons defense that has been phenomenal this year and is very good at shutting guys down with this initial action. You saw last night that the Cavs have so many guys that can attack off of the bounce, and even without Donovan Mitchell. Dennis Schroeder had a great game, I thought, last night. They have so many guys that, as good as the Pistons defense is, the Cavs are able to sort of prod and poke around throughout a possession until they find a gap. And a lot of teams have 1 or 2, but they don't have as many as the Cavs have.
You're right. And the thing that impressed me last night, when you play the Pistons, there are some things that you've got to write in your locker room. They're non-negotiable to compete against them, because they're counting on certain things. They're not going to take a lot of threes. They're not going to make a lot of threes. In fact, it's just surfaced late in the game. If you can funnel the ball and force the ball defensively to be kicked out to certain guys, it's a major advantage against the Pistons, and it's the biggest question mark they have. And one of those happened last night in a 3-point game. They forced, because they had 5 guys in the paint defensively, a kick out to Thompson in the corner. And Ausar Thompson didn't want to take it, did take it, wasn't really close. And that's a win for the defense. And that's still my one question about Detroit. But here are the things you have to do against them, or you have to prevent doing. You can't turn the ball over. They had 10 turnovers in the game. That's a great number against the Pistons, because they are going to force you into more turnovers than anybody, and they're going to run off of those. They didn't give up a lot of points in fast break. They didn't give up a lot of offensive rebounds. So the things that you have to do against Detroit to have a chance, they did. And then the other end of the floor, like being able to make sure it's not Cunningham with a lot of space in the middle of the floor. It's not Cunningham during 2-man game gutting you. The ball doesn't get funneled out to Duncan Robinson and Tobias Harris. It ends up with guys like Thompson and Holland and players like that having to make big shots. If you can do that, you've got a good chance against Detroit. So to me, this felt like a playoff game. When they play each other, it typically looks like that. We just had a Cavs-Pistons game. I called the other night an overtime game. That was an amazing game, amazing finish to that game. These two teams, man, are like, if they did link up in a 7-game series, I would almost lay money going in to be a 7-game series.
I would probably take the Cavs too in this one, because logically it makes sense. We just talked about, you have multiple people who can guard Cade Cunningham and make his life difficult, plus that rim protection. So that's a huge ingredient here. We talked about all of the ball movement and the ability to attack from multiple angles, from a lot of different drivers. That puts a lot of strain on the defense. But here's the biggest reason I think this might be where the Cavs have an advantage in this specific matchup. Last night, they took twice as many threes. And it didn't, and that's just who they are. The biggest fear you should have about the Pistons, if you're a Pistons fan, the biggest fear you should have is that I don't think they can win in a 3-point shootout. And I think the Cavs are going to be able to take threes at volume against this team. So you're almost always going to lose the 3-point battle. That's really hard to make up, because if you're giving up 46 threes as they did last night and they can make even an average percentage of them, you're always going to be chasing the math. That happened last night, and it was a big reason why they won, even though the Cavs didn't play particularly well or even shoot particularly well.
I'll tell you, man, how fun is this top 6 in the Eastern Conference? So
becoming very fun.
I mean, think about it, man. Like, we haven't even mentioned the Celtics yet. They didn't play last night, but we've talked about them a lot, how much respect we have for what they do on a nightly basis. Tatum's coming back any day. Like, it's just going to be incredible, like, to inject him into all this late in the year, like what that's going to look like potentially. We just talked about, these two teams. The Knicks are playing great right now. Their defense is going to another level. Going to see them tonight against OKC, and it should be a great matchup. So those top 4, and then outside of that, I still think Toronto. To me, Toronto's an interesting team. I think they might be more interesting to me than you.
Yeah.
And then at Philly, I don't think you can deny that you would call them interesting because
they're just a wild card.
It really is, man. Like, who knows? Who knows? Like, they have these games. Like, I just called the Sixers-Knicks game 2 weeks ago. It was a 50-point game in the third quarter against the Knicks at home. They were down, and they're down last night 50 to the Spurs. So, like, they have these wildly horrible performances when guys are out. But when they get everybody, one word you can't deny, they are interesting. And they are not a team that you can completely dismiss. Somebody's going to have to play that team in the first round. And that's not going to be, if Embiid is like feeling good at that time, that will not be an easy series. But particularly these top 4, man. But then if 5 and 6 are Toronto, Philly, the top of the East is really healthy and in a good place. And it's setting up what could be just an unbelievable first round, but particularly that second round. Those 2 best of 7s, whoever that ends up being in the second round, is going to be so compelling.
Yeah. And by the way, Charlotte is playing such good basketball right now that they could – you're talking about spoilers, because I do look at the top 4 in the East and think that there's a big separation after that. The other teams are just too inconsistent or have struggled at some point. Toronto, Philly is that weird X factor because their best punch is really good, but we don't see it that often. Will it be healthy? Orlando, Miami, I don't think can get it done, but Charlotte is playing so well right now. They sneak into that spot. I think they would also be in a tougher first-round matchup than some of those other teams, and they might end up in the 1-8 matchup. So.
Hey, they've gotten it to 2.5 games back of the 6. So you're right. Wasn't trying
even
to
of the 6. Wow. Yeah, I
wasn't trying to neglect Charlotte because they have been playing great, and we did talk about them recently. But I was just more looking at these top 4. Pistons have clearly been the best team all year.
Yep.
Boston getting Tatum back already with an overachieving season. The Knicks getting it together now, like defensively answering the question that we had about them. And then the Cavs, what they did to their team. Like, I'm focused on those top 4, but you're right. It's good for you to point out. Don't sleep on Charlotte. They're 2.5 games out of the 6, and the 6 is Philly, who has a lot of nights when they don't have their guys, or at least their top guy. Yeah. So this is really going to come down to the wire here, and Charlotte trying to make up some ground here, man. See if they can at least get into that 7-8, where you got 2 chances to get into a best of 7 first-round series.
I got 2 more notes here on the Cavs I want to circle back to. The first one is, there were some really impressive defensive sequences from Tyson and Ellis as a duo, where those 2 guys were just like flying around the court and making these extra rotations. Late in the game, they forced a 24-second violation, and it was just off of like hustle, like those guys flying around, everybody guarding their guy and rotating, but those 2 just flying and covering so much ground. And they have a lot of guys. It really stands out to me, the teams that have multiple guys like that and the teams that don't. When you have multiple guys that make those type of just hero plays, OKC probably has the most of that type of guy. I mean, their roster is full of them. But the Cavs have a handful of them as well, and it stood out just in some of those sequences. Do you remember the 24-second violation I'm talking about? I do remember that, yeah. And you're right. And I think, look, when they acquired some of these guys, so much focus was on Harden. We didn't talk much about Keon Ellis at all. And like you and I have talked about Keon Ellis, I feel like a lot over the last couple of years. He's just a guy we both have a lot of admiration for. He was in a situation where they weren't getting a lot of shine. They weren't going to be on TV a lot, on national TV a whole lot. But now you look at this guy, and I think you're going to get a greater appreciation
for what Keon Ellis does on a nightly basis. And he's going to find a way for Kenny Atkinson to have him on the floor. I think in big spots. I believe that because he is a relentless on-ball hawk. Schroeder is as well. And they can change the feel and the tempo of the game when you insert those guys in and the pressure picks up. And it's amazing how you can get teams to speed up, get more careless with the ball, and change like quickly, get an 8-10-0 run, 10-2 run that they trigger with their defense that erases maybe a slow start by the starters on given nights.
They're probably an exhausting team to play. I mean, James Harden is exhausting because he gets you off balance so easily. That's what he's good at. Donovan Mitchell never stops attacking. I mean, he's exhausting because he's just getting downhill. You're always on your heels against him. And then Jaylon Tyson is exhausting in the other direction. Dennis Schroeder is exhausting. Keon Ellis is exhausting. They're a team that I think can wear you down because you just don't get breaks. You're kind of constantly chasing or being chased by their guys. And here's my last one I have for you. We always talk about the best player in a series, and I do think there's something to it. Do you have the best guy in the series? Well, that gives you an advantage. The Cavs, I think, have the best duo in any series in the East, and they might not have the best player. Like if you go to the Pistons, I think Cade is probably the better player of the three of them, but it's close. But the point is that you have Mitchell and Harden right after that, who are clearly going to be in the top three. And I think that'll be the case, that they will have two of the top three players in every series. Detroit, it's Cade and drop off between your next guy. Brunson, and they've got a lot of great players, but I don't think anybody of like Mitchell and Harden's, dynamic offensive play. You have Jaylen Brown, and, you have some good guys. If Tatum comes back, we don't expect him to be that big. Sixers are kind of interesting because Maxey and Embiid probably can match them, but are they healthy enough for it? You go down, Atlanta Hawks obviously no. The Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo and Khan. And then you have the Toronto Raptors, which is like they have a bunch of good guys, but I still think that you're going to have, the two on Cleveland at the top. So it's a weird dynamic where they're going to have two of the top three best players, maybe not the best, but two of the three best players in any series they would face.
Very fair point. And now let's take it a step further, without getting too far ahead of ourselves with Cavs, but I think everything we're saying is fair. How about we go, okay, well, man, let's go top three. Look at their third guy, Evan Mobley.
Yep, you're right. Right there as well.
Who's got a third guy on that level? Because he's also a guy that can have a 15-point game and dominate. I've seen a couple of those games this year where he wasn't like putting up huge numbers. He's capable of having 20-plus point games. I saw him have a couple of games this year that I thought were as good as any big man defensively I'd seen all year. Now, Wemby has a different level of impact because he erases everything at the rim. But like I saw in terms of ground coverage out on the perimeter and then at the rim and like all the different responsibilities, I've seen Evan Mobley have a couple of the best defensive games I've seen all year out of a big guy. So as your third guy, and then by the way, you realize Jarrett Allen just averaged 22 points over the last like 15 games. I've never seen Jarrett Allen play this well offensively. It's on a completely different level. And some of that's a Harden effect, but some of it started before he got there. One of the reasons I loved Harden from the beginning when he came here, and I said the risk was worth it to me, was because of the guys he can reward. He's just a higher level playmaker than Darius Garland. He's going to make life a lot easier for Allen, Mobley, these shooters, even Mitchell. So I think obviously we both have now piqued our interest. Yeah. The Cleveland Cavaliers have piqued our interest. I think, like I said, I'll back it up and finish it with this statement. This is the most interested I've been in this team in the last 2.5 years, and they've been in the mix for 2.5 years. What they look like right now, fully healthy, this is a team I think that really can do a lot of damage in the East.
I'm buying them, but there is a bit of a paper, rock, scissors situation there. I don't know. So I think it's regional. Some people say rock, paper, scissors. I say paper, rock, scissors. There's a little bit of the Knicks. Detroit has their number. I think that's real. The matchup works in Detroit's favor. They have more of a singular creator, in Jalen Brunson. Detroit can really guard it. The Cavs seem to have Detroit's number. There's a little bit of, you think about the Knicks right now, can they come out of the East? Well, right now they're the 3 seed. Cavs the 4, Pistons the 1. Another team might take Detroit out for them. And then you have Boston in there that throws a wrench in the mix. So I think there is an interesting dynamic in the East where, depending on how everything shakes out, I might have a different team coming out of the East. If the Cavs match up with the Pistons, I'm going to take them to beat the Pistons, and then I might take the Knicks to beat the Cavs. If it doesn't work out that way, I might be going with the Pistons to come out of the East. That's an interesting dynamic to me.
I will say this, for me, I don't want to get into these big projections because, I need to see what led up to that moment. Like, I need to see, like, if they don't play each other in the first round, I want to see who these teams are that they're playing, how they play against them, who's hot coming in, who's healthy coming in. Like, all those things are going to factor in if these two teams play. But I do think it would be, no matter what, if they play, it will be a really long series. Right now, I'd say it could go either way. You wait to make that kind of pick when you have to make that pick. It sounds like you already think if both these teams don't have a significant injury and they meet in the playoffs, you like the Cavs to win that series
against this matchup.
Well, if that's the case, I'm guessing you must think the Cavs are going to the finals or unless you think Boston, because of this X factor with Tatum, would be the team. Because I'm not thinking, are you thinking the Cavs couldn't beat the Knicks?
I think they could. I just think that the Knicks match up better against the Cavs than they do against the Pistons. And that's what I mean is,
gotcha.
Yeah, you can beat a team that's the favorite and then lose to a team that's below them just because it really is an interesting matchup situation. Boston's another wrench in the, I want to see Boston, Cleveland, and see what that matchup looks like. So it's just weird. It's just interesting because I do think there's teams that are vulnerable to everybody. And it'll make for a great playoffs. A couple quick hitters on the Cavs, though, or on the Pistons. Cade Cunningham's finishing, to me, is the thing that I think it right now separates him from his ceiling. He is so good, and he can make quick reads. He's getting downhill. He does so many things right. But I still don't trust him to finish, like, difficult shots at the rim. And I think that's the thing that will make him, like, if he can clean that up. Obviously, his three-point shooting, he's a reluctant three-point shooter. And last night, I think he needed to probably take a few more, 0 of 3. But that part, I'm throwing that aside. There's a lot of players you could say they could become great three-point shooters. But just finishing at the rim, he's such a big body that I feel like if he can solve that problem, he will become even better than what he is, which is already one of the league's best players. But I think that would put him in the just perennial best player in the league conversations. But right now, he doesn't finish quite like that.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, I don't know that I'm as skeptical about that as you, but I think it's a fair point. There definitely is a level to this where there is an expectation in certain moments, particularly, that guys are going to find a way to put the ball in the basket, no matter what's in front of them. And I think for the most part, he's there. But I hear what you're saying. There's still like that little bit more he's got to grab. And one last point on them. Like, obviously, Cunningham and Durham are the two most important guys. You start looking up and down that roster, okay, and they've got some defenders. They've got physicality. They've got a lot of guys. They got Isaiah Stewart back now, so they're a little bit healthier and deeper. Duncan Robinson might be the next most important player on the team.
They still don't have enough shooting. So
because they don't have hardly any, and it's not even the ones he's making, because right now he's in a slump. They've gone 3-2 in their last 5. Look, they lost to 2 good teams in close games. But he's 10 for his last 37 from the 3. So he's and for the most part, he's pretty consistent. He's 40%, like pretty much just pencil it in all the times for a season, for his career. Like, he's 40% shooter, and he's a high volume shooter. His motion and movement off the ball really important to creating communication issues that allow space for the other guys.
Great point.
But when he is like bottled up. And we saw it the last time Cleveland played Detroit in that overtime game that I was on the call for, along with Ryan Rucco and Michael Malone. Like, they were face guarding, top siding. They were basically, because of how they were playing him, you didn't need more than one guy to shift to Duncan Robinson. And it made it harder for them. Last night, 9 made threes. That's hard in this league. And it's kind of their formula. Most nights is good enough because their defense is most nights good enough. But when they play a top shelf team that has 3-point shooting, that's also going to compete defensively. Like, that's a deficit that's hard to make up. I mean, this is a 1-possession game, as we talked about, 5 minutes to go. They end up losing by 4, and they got outscored by 24 points at the 3-point line.
That's so it's too much. You can't get outscored by that much and win games. It's too hard.
So I'm looking at Duncan Robinson as a key acquisition, really important impact, and making sure that he stays in the flow and stays a threat, because it makes everybody's life easier on that team.
I have one last guy I wanted to ask you about, though, before we move on, and that's Ausar Thompson. I know his offensive struggles are well publicized. You can leave him open; it compromises you. But his defense is pretty insane. he had multiple like pick your pockets in the backcourt or right at the half court line. That there's not that many players that could just sort of physically overwhelm you to where they steal the ball. Like good ball handlers, James Harden, like good players. He can just get a steal out for a run out. He really is one of the. I mean, it's. I'm hedging my bet here because I'm not saying anything crazy. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA and one of the scariest guys you can put on ball because he's so overwhelming.
I don't know why you bother letting people handle the ball against them.
It's true. That might be a shutdown corner.
There's another option on the court at all times. But here, you take it. Like when I played, it was, and he wasn't nearly, obviously, when I say the name, you're going to laugh, not the physical presence, but in terms of dudes not wanting to advance the ball against him, right? Muggsy Bogues.
Oh, yeah, just so small and into you.
He was so low to the ground, and Muggsy guarded me some. You catch the ball, you put it like above your head to look around the court. He's so low that it's almost like when I go to dribble this, he might catch it before it hits the ground. Like that's how much he was into you. So like Thompson, to your point, now I've seen him a number of times this year, and he did it last night to Harden. I saw him do it to Schroeder the last time these teams played. Another really quick guy that can handle the ball in the backcourt. He's so good at he starts out and he picks you up about foul line area in the backcourt. And you're coming up the floor and you're casually changing directions, and he's just sort of sliding casually. He's presenting himself with his arms out like this big, visual for the guard to see. Then all of a sudden, he times it. When you do that next crossover and you're maybe 10 feet from getting over the half court line, he not only changes his body to turn with you, he lunges at the ball at the same time. And it's amazing to watch in person, how much ground he covers when you're this ball handler completely thought he had this situation under control. Yeah. And now here he goes. He changes his hip swivel and he dives at the ball at the same time. And what's amazing is sometimes he misses. And you know what he does? He misses. He gets so low, both palms will hit the court. He'll bounce up and still get back and recover and keep the ball in front. Your point is, it's like
a panther.
It really is. That's what I'm saying. It's almost like you're watching this something seeking out its prey.
Yeah, totally.
It's waiting to time it just right till you let your guard down. And it's amazing how often he comes up with that steal, but the fact that he doesn't overly compromise you with these risks that aren't worth it, and now it's 5-on-4 because he doesn't recover. He still gets back into the play to make sure that your defense isn't compromised.
The thing you're talking about, this just ability to kind of lunge fully for it, but then recover, just pop up and recover. I think Chris Dunn does this at a really good job too.
That's a really good one.
But Ausar Thompson does it at his height and size. He looks enormous out there.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Exactly.
By the way, you mentioned Muggsy Bogues. I know you know this one, but you know of his high school team, Dunbar High School.
Of course.
I don't know if the audience does.
Of course.
You're an East Coast guy. This is a high school team he had out in Baltimore. It has had Muggsy Bogues on it, Reggie Williams, Reggie Lewis, David Wingate. You imagine a high school team with 4 NBA
and here's
players.
Here's what's amazing about it, because look, at the time when I was growing up and I was very familiar with that team, and they had another guy on the team named Mike Brown who played at Syracuse, had a great career. I mean, that team we knew about and was generally regarded as the greatest high school team ever
of all time. Yeah.
Now maybe there'd be debate, but here's the difference. Guys fly and move all over the country to play at certain programs.
Yeah, this isn't prep school or anything like that. That's just this neighborhood.
Were in the same neighborhood. They just grew up together, and they put this team, obviously an undefeated high school team, incredible. And they had this legendary aura about them. Dunbar, like this. Now I don't know. I'm sure that we could find high school teams with more talent, but they get 10 5-star recruits from all over the country. Yeah, it's almost like a college program. So now there would be debate, but back then it wasn't debatable. That was the greatest high school team ever assembled, and these dudes just happened to grow up in the same school district,
same little neighborhood. Man, it's pretty wild to think that much talent. All right, why don't we take our first break? That was our FanDuel game breakdown. We always do a game breakdown. That segment's always presented by FanDuel, but we're going to take a break because we have another game we want to break down, and that is the Knicks and the Raptors. And did the Raptors have a chance? That's the question I'm going to ask on the other side. College basketball is nonstop. Man, it's college basketball time of year. I can feel it already. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every night. Now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Here's how it works. Build any college hoops parlay you like. The early tip, the rivalry game, the ranked matchup, the late night West Coast shootout. Mix spreads, totals, props, whatever fits your read of the slate. And then you just apply your profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go spicy, go with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com/AllCity to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
You know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car or at a gas station 3 states away? We've all been there. I've been there. But luckily, I've got Shady Rays. They've changed the game. They're sunglasses that are made for real life, seriously good looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And here's the wild part. If you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements, so you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear. On hikes, at concerts, or out on a boat, wherever, Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to ShadyRays.com and use the code ALLCITY. This is a new promo code. Go to ShadyRays.com and use code ALLCITY for 40% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. It is sunglass season. Go to ShadyRays.com and use that code ALLCITY. All right, back here, segment 2. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you go ahead and throw us a like and make sure you're subscribed. Legs and I are doing this 2 times a week. I got Jason Timpf once a week, and I got Mark Stein giving us the inside scoop on the weekends. So we have 4 great shows for you. You don't want to miss any of them. Legs, let's go on over now to the other game, and that was the Knicks getting a win over the Raptors last night. And they did it behind a 9-0 run in the clutch. Like right as you enter clutch time, the Toronto Raptors couldn't score. They had some good shots. I don't know if this was just a matter of them not converting on some of those shots or if the types of shots they're getting are not going to be of the type of quality that you're going to need to win at the highest levels in that Eastern Conference. But this game was close. It was a 2-point game, I think, going into clutch time, and that 9-0 run opened it up for the Knicks. And there wasn't a whole lot of drama because that run happened so quick. But what stood out to you about this one?
16-2 to end the game. So we'll start there. Definitely, you talk about their Toronto's offense late. It was a mixture. I would definitely, I got every possession written down from the time it was a 2-point game. I went back over it this morning and it was a mixture. There were some bad possessions that I'll credit the Knicks defense that got what they wanted them to take at the end of the possession. Now look, Brandon Ingram can make tough shots. He can make lean backs, fall backs, like all kinds of stuff. Really highly contested shots. That's what he does with his length. Mid-range is his thing. But some of these were like damn near unmakeable. A couple of the shots that he took in that stretch. They also forced, like the Cavs did to the Pistons, the Knicks forced the ball to be funneled to Scotty Barnes for a 3 at a very opportune time for them. That's not his wheelhouse, 29% on the year. Doesn't want to take that shot. The Knicks forced that. It was a combination, though, of what the Knicks did after those possessions. Like the stark contrast between what the Raptors were getting during that stretch and what the Knicks turned that into. Some open floor, some great individual shot making by Cat. Jaylon Brunson had this, I thought, the biggest shot of the game, this ball screen where he just completely went inside out dribble when he got the switch and almost made Pirtle fall down and then shoots this step back 3. Patented Brunson's shot. That was, to me, was the biggest shot of the game. That made it a 7-point game late. And that to me was like, okay, it's over now. So it was what the Knicks did on the other end. So yeah, their defense was really good. Yeah, Toronto missed a couple shots they could make from scorers, but it was the Knicks just every trip getting what they wanted and executing, and different guys stepping up, making shots. And it was this contrast, like the closing of the game.
Yeah.
Was like told you the difference really between the two teams. So I know we're going to talk about both of them, but mostly the Raptors, I believe, right? You want to talk about that. Can I throw this out there?
Yeah, we can do both, but yeah, I want to talk a lot of Raptors. But what do you got?
I'm watching this game, and I'm saying to myself, who do the Raptors remind me of?
Oh no.
Who do they remind me of? And look, I want to be very clear. People sometimes get too literal when you make comparisons. Okay? It's really just a narrative to set up a conversation and make you think a little bit about, hey, you know what? He's kind of right. I think now they're not as good as the team I'm about to say overall, but there's a lot of similarities between the Toronto Raptors and the Houston Rockets.
It's like if you took, I knew that's where you were going to go as I was looking and wondering. It's like if you took all of the players down a level, like Brandon Ingram's not Kevin Durant, but you kind of have that dynamic, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at here, and look, let me just first talk about, as I'm watching it, I was hitting me. They remind me of them for a variety of reasons. Number one, they don't have a point guard, natural point guard to organize, take the ball, set the table, make the game easier for their scorers. They don't have one either. Quickly had 12 assists last night. He averages like 6 on the season. He's not a natural point guard. He's a scorer. The Rockets don't have one either. So that was what started to make me think this. And of course, the natural comparisons with Ingram and Durant. You're right. Ingram's not Kevin Durant, but he's a similar type of player. He's a very good scorer, a very good mid-range contested jump shooter. That's what Durant has been throughout his career. He's just not as good as Durant. All right. So look at, first of all, just some of these numbers. I was kind of like, well, let's see now statistically how they kind of match up. If I'm seeing this, points allowed, they're 21st, 22nd. I'm sorry, points scored. They're 21st and 22nd in the league. Houston, Toronto. Field goal percentage, they're 10th and 11th. 3-pointers made, they're 25th and 26th. 3-point attempts, they're 25th and 29th. 3-point percentage, now this is where Houston's a little different. They're 6th in percentage, and the Raptors are 23rd. That's a big difference because they don't take a lot, but the Rockets make a much higher rate of those. Offensive rebounds, also a big difference. Houston, number 1 in the league. Toronto, 17th. Defensive rating, 6th and 8th. Very similar. Then you go personnel. We already said Ingram, KD. Well, how about the Scotty Barnes, Amin Thompson comparison? Now, you can take your pick who you think's a better player. There's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah. Right now, it's Scotty Barnes, I think. Amin Thompson's had a rough
No.
go.
As an all-around player, Scotty Barnes is a better player.
Yeah.
But there's some similarities there.
There are similarities. I do agree.
There's a big hole in their shooting. They're elite defenders. Thompson does it more with crazy athletic burst and quickness, and it gets off the ground so quick. Scotty Barnes is more like physicality. He's also athletic, but he's strong. He's physical. He's big. But similar in that there's a hole in their game. They're good all-around players. Barnes is better, but it's similar in that regard. And then, like, even this guard that they're playing, like, quickly can light it up any given night. He's not a natural playmaker. Reed Shepherd kind of filling that role for Houston. Yeah. Shot maker, not a natural playmaker for them. He's not big enough. I'm watching these two teams playing. I'm saying it was kind of similar. Like,
yeah.
And in regard to their respective conferences, Houston's got a better chance against the top of the West, but I think we would both agree they're on the second tier. Maybe even Toronto's case, you might think third tier. I don't know how you're going to break down the top of the East. I don't think anybody's putting Houston in the same level with Denver, San Antonio, and Oklahoma City. I'm not.
Okay. I think some people would. I mean, Rockets fans are going to let you hear about that one, but I am with you that I do think there's a separation there. The separation is greater in the East, though. I do think the top 4 teams are like a step or two above the Toronto Raptors.
I totally agree with you, but I think when I'm watching them, I'm saying they have to win a certain way.
Yeah, I know. I think that part.
Okay,
I like.
If that doesn't happen on a given night, it's hard for them.
Yeah,
and I think for Toronto, the lack of 3-point shooting, the lack of a natural point guard, everybody being like good at what they do, but it's like not elite level to beat the better teams in this league when they have to have it. So I think they're a really good team. Houston's a better team, certainly more relevant in the West, and maybe Houston gives those top 3 teams all they can handle in a 7-game series. It's possible. But I think in terms of my expectations to see a team represent their conference in the finals, I would put San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Denver a notch above Houston in that regard.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, though, about like I don't love the way Houston plays, and it doesn't inspire confidence in me, but Kevin Durant is so great that you still watch that and go, yeah, but Sometimes he gets into a rhythm that you just can't stop. I don't feel that way about Brandon Ingram or Scotty Barnes or RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett had a very good game last night, 9 of 13. He got downhill, just kept going to the rim. So he actually made his shots at a high rate. But in the clutch, Brandon Ingram took 2 fallaways that Kevin Durant can hit at just a little bit of a higher rate than he can hit. Scotty Barnes, one of the things about the Raptors is, you're right, they don't have a point guard, so maybe that's the issue. There'd be more clarity. But they also have multiple guys you kind of go to. It's like they went to Brandon Ingram in the clutch. Like, let's see what you got. Okay, missed a couple. Okay, we'll go to RJ Barrett. Okay, what do you have? Okay, you missed a couple. Let's go to Scotty Barnes. Okay, he missed a couple. And that's just a little bit different than a team like the Knicks, who when things slow down, you're going to Brunson. And maybe that's part of the dynamic you're talking about is without the point guard, you kind of just give guys 1 or 2 shots and then move on to the next option.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to real quick make sure we clarify. Like I was remiss, but only because they weren't in this direct conversation with some of the comparisons to Houston. Minnesota is another team I'm putting into that mix in the West. Like let's be clear about that. It's particularly what they're doing now, the way they look and the way they're playing. And maybe some people would even put Houston, Minnesota ahead of Denver right now.
I love that you keep giving Denver credit, even though they haven't played a good basketball game in, 2 months.
I'm just the Jokic effect and watching them at their best earlier this year.
Yeah.
And like the amount of time they had guys out, I'm stuck dismissing them. But yeah, I mean, Minnesota right now maybe has jumped both of those teams.
Yeah.
Denver and Houston in terms of like, wow, like, do you really want to play the Timberwolves right now the way they're playing? So top of the West is loaded. I just, for me watching the game last night, I was thinking like they do things and have to win a certain way that are difficult to do every night.
Yeah.
And that's what Toronto looked like to me, because it doesn't come easy for them. I have a lot of respect for them. They play hard. They're a good defensive team. Yeah. They've got some talent, but they're just a little bit short in specific areas. And if things don't go certain ways for them with certain guys, and stylistically it's not a game that they like to play in, you could see the difference between the two teams last night and how they closed the game. It was rough. And even some of the frustration it looked like on the part of the Raptors and like their body language and faces when that lead or when that game got away from them in a very short period of time to close the game. So look, Toronto, I like them. They've come a long way in a year. So, now they need to make some additional personnel changes in the offseason to see. But look, they're going to be an entertaining team that can win a couple games in a series. I believe that.
Well, I want to move to the Knicks here in a second because I do have some quick hitters for them. But first, I hate to do this to you, Legs. I apologize in advance for doing this to you.
What's this?
We have to talk about the Legler curse.
What's that?
Before you picked Mamu as your guy, he was having such a great year. 38% from 3, 11 points a game. But since the very day you claimed him, his shooting's down to 29%, just 6 points. Everything's been cut in half. Are you worried at all about the Legler curse?
No, I'm not. Here's why. I'm never going to admit to that. When you look at the season that he's had and the consistency with his production, how good he's been, everybody's going to go through one of these stretches at different times. Actually, we just gave all this love to Jaylon Tyson. He just went through it. He went through a stretch where he couldn't make a shot.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then you love his defense, you love his size, you love all this stuff, but then when he's not making shots, you don't love him quite as much. Right? So for Mamu, and he didn't play well last night. He actually missed a couple wide open looks. Then he missed a bunny at the rim.
The whole
he's probably lost a little bit of confidence. Look, this is a guy that's like fought so many things to be an established player that when you go through a little bit of a struggle, it's amazing guys like that have fought so hard and they're finally tasting that, how quickly they can lose confidence a little bit. He looks like he's going through some of that. I'm not going to sit here and think he's not going to reverse this and he's going to get back on course. He's going through it right now. Everybody goes through it at some point. He hasn't really had much of one of these this year. So bad timing for him because these games are important, but I do think he's going to get on track.
Quick hitters on the Knicks. Brunson just owns the Raptors. Knicks have won 12 straight times against the Toronto Raptors. Like, this is just a terrible matchup for them. And in part because I don't think they have anybody that can guard Jalen Brunson. But really more than anything else, the Hart, Bridges, OG Anunoby trio, which is sort of just the backbone of that team, they're peaking at the right time. Those three guys are playing so well right now. Josh Hart continues to just be near perfect in what he brings to the table, knowing his role. Mikal Bridges is playing best right now, I think, of his entire season. And then obviously OG is pretty consistently great. But those three guys can just guard anyone, and collectively, there's some overlap of what they bring, and then they all check different boxes. Mikal Bridges with length and the ability to close out. OG Anunoby with his strength and versatility. Hart with the hustle. Those three guys, man, of what they do, when you're just talking about can you cover a lot of ground defensively and be versatile, that might be the best trio in the NBA. They're so good, and that's what makes the Knicks scary.
Yeah, because I think, look, for pretty much what you get out of Brunson. Karl Anthony Towns' offense hasn't been what it typically is this year, but it's not like the guy disappears. He still has good nights, and he rebounds the hell out of the ball, and he's still an all-star caliber player.
It was good last night, even. It
was. And OG is that next guy you kind of know. So it's those other two guys, to me, Bridges and Hart. They swing games.
Yeah, they really do.
Swing games. And Hart can do it a lot of nights without scoring. But Bridges, it's more, he's got to score. Like, he's got to make shots because their teams are going to load up on Brunson. Towns this hasn't been a really easy flowing fit for him offensively. So Bridges is really important for them offensively. The nights he makes shots, they're just that much better. Those two guys are absolute needle movers and pendulum swingers for the Knicks. And that's why, man, I can't wait for this game tonight to see they're playing really well. OKC's got Shea back in the Garden. Electric, man. I'm, as you can tell, I'm super amped for this game tonight.
It's going to be a good one, man. Is there any final thoughts you have on the Raptors or on the Knicks? Anything here?
No, I think the Knicks, man, for the Knicks, it's been kind of a little bit of a roller coaster ride in terms of perception of them.
Right now, they're on
people that do what we do. And right now, I probably have as strong a belief in them as I've had all year.
I agree.
Even when they won 9 straight.
Yeah. Knicks, Cavs, Celtics, Pistons, man. It turns out we have a really, really good top 4 in the Eastern Conference, and these playoffs are going to be so fascinating. And the home stretch is going to be fascinating because we could see some shuffling of those teams. They're all close enough that we could still kind of swap spots there, so it should be really interesting. The last thing before we close out, I was going to ask you, you got to do a broadcast with my guy, Michael Malone, the other day. I loved that pairing. You guys both are just such good storytellers and analysts of the game. What was that experience like getting to call it with new to media, Michael Malone?
Yeah, it was awesome, man. And I've known him a long time. I knew his dad really well. So I've known him. I've done so many Nuggets games and just different times I've interacted with him. So I had a very comfortable relationship with him going into the game, which is important for chemistry. It was great, man. We had some fun, and then you guys
had good chemistry.
We had the weirdest thing I've seen in an NBA game: a 12.5-minute horn. That shut the game down. So now you talk about vamping and talking, and storytelling, and that was important during that stretch. So it was interesting for him. He had it all in one night, man. Not only did he get this weird dynamic in the game, which you don't see, a hell of a game. And overtime to boot, like additional basketball on top. And as a result, I don't know. So if you were watching that game on ESPN, you didn't get the Denver OKC game on ESPN until middle of the second quarter because of the overtime and the 12.5-minute horn delay.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun with him, man. He's obviously, he's accomplished a lot in this league, and he's really, really smart. And I'm sure he's going to, when he chooses to, assuming he wants to, he will be coaching again and no doubt coaching a really good team and turning them into a really good team. He's that good. And guys like that have had that kind of success, I'm sure still want to coach. But for now, he's going to do a little of this TV work for the year and probably sit back and reassess any options that pop up over the summer.
Well, hit that outro music, Atticus. Yeah, Michael Malone is a coach. That guy is just for sure a coach. I mean, it's in his blood, but he's so good at media as well. If he ever didn't want to coach, he would be so good at it. But it was great to see you two guys together, man. That was a really fun pairing. We hope you guys enjoyed this show. We love breaking down the game, real basketball talk, real hoops talk on this show. So if that's your bag, make sure you share it with your friends. Put it out on social media, and most important of all, make sure you're subscribed, not just here on YouTube, but also wherever you get your podcasts. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review, and the best thing you do is just leave us a like on the way out. We'll see everybody on Friday. Me and Legs are back.
like the mayor.